Welcome to the Authority File, the podcast that features conversations about the life cycle of scholarly communication. I'm Bill Mickey, your host and the editorial director at Choice. In this series, we're going to be talking about Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs for short, and the role academic publishers play in support of them. The SDGs, there are 17 of them, were developed in 2015 by the United Nations to address the effects of climate change and are expected to be met by 2030. As you might guess, academic publishers, particularly in the sciences, but also HSS, can and do play an important role in advancing our understanding, advocacy, and action with the SDGs. Ritu Dhand, Chief Scientific Officer at Springer Nature, joins me on this four-part series to talk about how the research community, and Springer Nature in particular, are driving engagement and results with the UN's SDG program. In this final episode of our series, Ritu talks about how Springer Nature achieved full buy-in from its employees around SDG publishing support, and with the projected completion of the UN's Sustainable Development Goals a mere 5 years away, Ritu reveals whether she feels the glass is half full or half empty with the progress we've made so far. So, can you talk about how you've managed to get buy-in from your employees? What did that look like for you as you embarked on the SDG campaigns?
From the executive board downwards, we are encouraged to engage with the SDG space, either personally or via objectives that have been set for us through our work. And we have two main players, the director of SDG research that coordinates activities in the research space, and the director of sustainability and climate action officer, who runs activities to engage our employees. We run mandatory training for every employee on the importance of action on climate change. We also have a recognition program. Every year we run the SDG Impact Challenge, where we encourage everyone to create teams and then really go to town on practicing sustainable living for a period of about 2 weeks and to document everything. And then we give prizes to those that lived the most sustainably. We have an SDG steering group that meets monthly, and that includes members from every division, from marketing to publishing, and they set the goals and the KPIs and share updates.
Mm-hmm.
We have volunteer SDG working groups. So each SDG has volunteers who engage with activities throughout the year. And then we do a big annual showcase of their achievements at the end of the year. And we award our SDG Heroes, those people that we feel have contributed the most, either in a group or on their own, where it's not their day job to be working in the SDG space. And we also make sure that they're heavily promoted on our intranets and so on. So, yeah, it's a full-on engagement activity, because if they engage, we will do more visibly externally as well.
Yeah, it does kind of prove the value of or the importance of internal communications, I guess, and keeping everybody apprised of what everybody's doing and rewarding those who are making real progress.
I think the SDGs are so inspiring a space that
Mm-hmm.
it's not difficult. You just have to make it available.
Yeah, right. Um, so you mentioned in episode one, we're about 6 years out from the deadline for the SDGs, and I'm curious, with the progress that we've all made so far, do you see do you see the glass half full at this point, or half empty?
My glass is half full. If you look at where we are today. Last year was actually the halfway point,
Hmm.
and there was a lot of discussion on, are we going to achieve our goals? If you look at research grants in this space, well, they haven't, the number of grants hasn't increased. The funding contributed with each grant that was available has increased. And that's led to more research. So Springer Nature is now publishing nearly 100,000 articles a year. And globally, across publishing, we're publishing over 1 million articles a year. And in 2010, that was just 250,000. We're seeing industry engaging. I remember a young startup was having difficulty securing funds, but after they published their paper with us, paper was heavily promoted, and they secured a lot of funding
Hmm.
to help them to grow. And even within larger groups, we see the benefits of publishing papers. So there was a paper by a small team that was working in an R&D department in Samsung, looking at solid state batteries. We published the paper. It got a lot of engagement. And the next thing we saw that was Samsung put up a pilot facility to expand on the research. And, that that is warming to the heart to
Hmm.
see that happen. If you type sustainable development goals into Google, you get over 150 million hits. We've asked our community about awareness of the SDGs, and it's at 74%. Whereas, back in 2015, it was much, much lower. And, it's a known fact that 83% of 206 companies that were surveyed in 2021 said they support the SDGs. I'm sure we all remember, was it last year or the year before, when Times Higher Education started including its SDG Impact ranking
Hmm.
for their assessments of universities. So that sort of the global awareness is now where it should have been, perhaps at 2015, but that takes time to get
Hmm.
there. And so one would hope, one would imagine that now that we have awareness where it needs to be, we have a lot of research happening. We've made our mistakes and we all know how to move forward. That the next 15 years we'll see a lot more action and a lot more happening in this space.
Right. Yes. Does Springer have any specific plans for that next phase, or are you just going to kind of continue to do what you've been doing this first half?
It is to do more of what we have done. I
Hmm.
mean, we were publishing, 18, 17, 18% of our content was in the SDGs. It's now 25. We'd
Yeah.
like it to be 30.
Okay.
We want to be carbon neutral by 2040. I said it's really important that the global south has a voice. We haven't successfully completed increasing the diversity of our ed boards. I really hope we make a massive dent in that in the next coming years. We need to be able to successfully engage reviewers from these countries. And so we're actually looking at building technology that helps us to do this, because it's not going to happen on its own. We're creating lots of new training for our editors to teach them about all of this. So there is a lot to be done, and yeah, we're well on the road to having a lot of these initiatives already set up and running.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think to get like a little bit more specific, I mean, in one of our previous conversations prior to this recording, you mentioned the importance of developing a standardized taxonomy of or for SDG research classification. I'm wondering if you could talk about this. Like, what would that look like, and how would that be more effective for the community?
Yeah, so at the moment, Dimensions do SDG classifications. I think there are a few other databases that classify according to the SDGs, and a lot of the publishers are able to use them, but we're not all using the same
Hmm.
classification, so it becomes very difficult to. I mean, I said at the very beginning we're part of the publisher's contact. We want to work together, but putting all our energy research with somebody else, another publisher, Wiley's energy research becomes very difficult if we're all not using the same taxonomy. The other thing is that every publisher is thinking they have to create their own taxonomy because ideally we want to be able to filter content at source. At the moment, we have to wait for for example, dimensions to classify the content. It's now old or older, and then we can update our content hubs and group it. So all the analyses that we do are retro, and being able to do that on content as it's published, creating content feeds of published
Hmm.
content is really important to increase engagement. So at the moment, we're trying to create our own taxonomy for SDG research so that we can do it at source. But, you know, we're all going to end up doing that. So it's reinventing the wheel. And, if this could be an open source thing, then that would really help all publishers.
Hmm. Excellent. Okay, well, that's all the time we have. Ritu, thank you so much for joining us on the program.
Thank you, Bill. It's been my pleasure. My favourite topic, as you might have noticed.
You just heard from Ritu Dhand, Chief Scientific Officer at Springer Nature. This episode was brought to you with generous support from Springer Nature. As always, underwriting opportunities for the Authority File podcast are directed by Choice's advertising director, Pam Marino, and all of our episodes are produced and edited by Choice's digital media producer, Sabrina Kofer, with support from digital media assistant Ashley Roy. That's all for this week. Thanks for joining us.